like to welcome you all here today. We had an overwhelming response to this session, which has been absolutely fantastic. We are recording the session and we will place it on the NSWPLA YouTube channel, so everybody can access it following today. There's a few people who are unable to attend due to work commitments and whatnot. But before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm hosting this meeting from the lands of the Wiradjuri people. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we're all working today, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this meeting. Like to pay respects to elders past, present and emerging, and celebrate the diversity of the First Nations people and their ongoing cultures and connections with the land and waters of New South Wales. So to start, Kat's research, which she'll be speaking about today, was funded by the New South Wales Public Libraries Association through the Kath Knowles Emerging Leaders Award. The award is being provided this year. The award's being provided by the way of 2 bursaries to attend the Switch conference in November in Albury. The applications will open in July, 1st of July, and they'll close on the 31st of August. I will send some further information out when they open, but if you have been working in the library profession for less than 10 years, then you'll be eligible to apply for the bursary and attend Switch in November in Albury. So, Kat Thomas, our fabulous 2018 Kath Knowles recipient. She's passionate about creating inclusive library services and spaces for our communities. Libraries are for everybody, and it's our role to make them as welcoming, safe and inclusive as possible. It's easy to say everyone is welcome, but how do we show that everyone is welcome? Kat has spent the last couple of years undertaking numerous professional development opportunities and researching to discover methods, techniques and general steps that public libraries can take in order to create inclusive, safe and supportive libraries for our LGBTQIA+ community. So I'd like to welcome Kat today and pass you over to her, and we can all hear about how the wonderful, fabulous things that she's been doing. Thanks, Kat.
Thanks so much, Adele, and thank you to everybody that is here today. We'll also be having, you would have seen when you registered, a couple of other presenters that will come after me. It was really important for me to share space with a couple of people that have been doing some amazing stuff in the area and to start and continue the conversation here today and continue that on. I'll just share my screen. If you do have questions as we go on, Adele has lovely agreed to monitor the chat for us as well. So my project was Sense of Pride, creating inclusive, safe and supportive libraries for our LGBTQIA+ community. And just before I start, I wanted to say that I've used the term LGBTQIA+ throughout my presentation and the document that I created out of my research. And I've used that as an inclusive term that recognises the diversity and experiences of sexuality, sex characteristics and genders, but I do want to acknowledge that that terminology is a source of ongoing community discussion, and that therefore it might not necessarily reflect the identification of all individuals. Oh, I'm just trying to go to the next slide, but it doesn't want to happen for me. Let me know if anyone can't see what's happening as well, if the share slide's gone a bit funny. I'd like to honour and respect our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that are here today, and the spirit that binds us in our dreams and aspirations as Dharawal country and community. I am presenting today from Dharawal land, and I have grown up on Dharawal land, and it's a beautiful land with beautiful people. And I'd also like to pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging, and to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are attending here today. We all are coming from many lands, and I do invite you, if you would like to acknowledge the land that you are coming from, to please feel free to put that information in the chat and do so. So I guess I'll start with my aim. So libraries are for all members of our community. That is the main aim of our libraries. And it's our role to make them as welcoming, safe and inclusive as possible for our community. Inclusion creates a sense of belonging and encourages engagement without effort to create inclusive spaces in our libraries. Members of the LGBTQIA+ community could be left feeling isolated or even unwanted in these spaces, which is definitely not what we want. Many lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex and other people of a diverse sexuality, sex and gender live healthy and happy lives. However, the research does demonstrate that a disproportionate number of people have experienced or do experience mental health challenges. And there are many reasons for this, but a big contributing factor for these outcomes are related to lived experiences of stigma, of prejudice and discrimination. So working to create an environment that's welcoming, safe and inclusive, where our LGBTQIA+ community feel comfortable, respected and included and accepted, will contribute to improving these health outcomes and support the health and wellbeing of our wonderfully diverse community. So with that in mind, the main aim of my project was to discover methods, techniques and general steps that libraries can take in order to create inclusive, safe and supportive libraries. As part of that, I would be evaluating library service for inclusivity and identifying areas that could have possible improvement, creating and suggesting guidelines to support the development of inclusive library services, as well as facilitating and supporting the ongoing conversation in libraries for ongoing improvement in public library services, which is part of what we're doing here today. And, oh, there we go. So as Adele mentioned, I did a whole lot of training and research to get to where I am today, and that doesn't stop. We all know about lifelong learning, so that's a very big part of it. So I've just put a couple of the icons for places that I did attend training. The one that I applied for, Pride in Practice, was the main one that I had mentioned when applying for the grant. So the Pride in Practice conference is a national conference and it's dedicated to advancing LGBTQIA+ inclusion in Australian workplaces, sports organisations and the health and human services sector. And the conference aim is to inspire and spotlight inclusion with key themes focusing on intersectionality, LGBTQIA+ women, trans and gender diverse people, First Nations LGBTQIA+ people, as well as international reach and a whole lot of other things. And that was just an incredible opportunity and conference to attend. And I've got some pictures in slides as it goes by of a couple of things that really spotlighted that for me. This year's ALIA conference on diversity was just so great. If there's anyone here that had any part of that, my hat's off to really everyone that was involved in putting that together, as well as everyone that presented, because it was just such a great conference to be able to attend. And these other logos that I've got there make up significant training that I went to, some in person, some were online because, as we all know, lockdowns. Some training, particularly conferences, do cost money, and I understand that that's a barrier for a lot of places. However, a lot of the training that I did attend was free, including panel discussions, online, electronic training, etc. So definitely look out for that because it can be very valuable. I very much recommend looking up and following some of these places, particularly like -18, 2010 and ACON, as they often bring out free training around Pride Month, Mardi Gras and other significant days of recognition. So if budget is an issue, following those can get you those opportunities to get some free training. Also, if distance is an issue, so much runs online now, so that's a wonderful bonus as well. And I've got down the bottom there, read, because professional reading got me so much information. And when you're looking to expand your understanding and experience, doesn't necessarily have to be professional reading. Learning about others' lives and experiences is really powerful and was a lot of what contributed to my understanding of people that are different from myself, because my lived experience is very different from anyone, the person in the next room and every one of you here today. So some of the training I got the most out of was actually hearing about people's lives. And the Pride in Practice training that I mentioned before, one of the sessions that was really powerful for me was a session with LGBTQIA+ refugees. and what their experiences were in their own country versus the experiences that they're now having in Australia and how they're able to live differently in Australia. And that was a very powerful session. Just skip to the next one. So this beautiful photo is the Campbelltown City Library's LGBTQIA+ action group. We're not all there, but pictured from my left is Eva, Sam, Liz, Zoe, Angela, and then myself. So since 2020, we've actually had a couple of extra members join, but we never seem to all be together to get a photo. And this is one of my favorite photos that we've done anyway. So I love this image. This is our Mardi Gras in Library float, which was an Instagrammable space, which was very popular with the public. So this group has been pivotal in making changes within our library service. We all have different areas of passion, different experiences, both lived and work-wise. And we've all been able to contribute in ways that have made a huge difference to the library. Don't feel discouraged if you don't have a group that you can work with, though. There's so much that one voice can do. And the thing is that you aren't one voice. All the people here today, we're many voices, and you know, this is part of why I wanted to present this way, to bring voices together. And there are a lot of people out there doing amazing things, and we're all happy to share. We're happy to help. So feel free to reach out. The first step that we took was to register all our libraries as Welcome Here spaces through ACON's Welcome Here project. And we've recently celebrated 3 years of being Welcome Here spaces. For anyone that doesn't know, the Welcome Here project supports businesses and services throughout Australia to create and promote environments that are visibly welcoming to the LGBTQIA+ community. So you receive stickers to put on your windows that you are expected to display in a prominent place so that everyone knows that this is a safe place for people to come. And for anyone, I know there was some interest for interstate, so if there's any possibility that people don't know, ACON is a New South Wales-based health or promotion organisation which specialises in HIV prevention and support. They've been a great supporter of our work over the last few years of the libraries, and we really value the work that we've done with them. Part of what we did was an LGBTQIA+ collection review. We actually had a lot of work to do with our collection at the time that we started back in 2018. So we did deleting old and outdated material across branches, across fiction and non-fiction. We liaised with experts like ACON to ensure we were purchasing important non-fiction items, particularly around health. We also consulted bestseller lists and booksellers who are experts on the subject matter. We got a large amount of new material. We did make the decision to include rainbow spine labels. I know there is some contention around that, and it's not for all libraries. So you do need to, consult with your community and make the best decision for your community on whether or not to look at doing something like spine labels. We made the collection more discoverable using subject tagging within our cataloguing. And we also reviewed and rewrote our collection development policy to ensure that that allowed and ensure that we were getting that material in future, and conversations with our suppliers to make sure that was included in our profile for purchasing. Be a visible ally. I think this is the biggest bit of feedback that we have had from the community over the last couple of years whenever we've talked to them, is that being visible both in really outstanding ways and in subtle ways is so important to the community. So I've included pronoun badges here. ACON have them readily available, or you can create your own. These are a couple that someone had created that I thought were great. Wearing ally badges, having the Welcome Here. I started including my pronouns on my email signature. I don't know why I wanted to say sign off, but that would have been fine as well. This little picture on the right here, this is actually some from Energy Australia. It's someone that I met when I was at the Pride in Practice conference. And if you can see, they've actually got a little extension that they allow they give everybody, they provide to everyone, that clips onto the end of their staff lanyards so that they can wear them on days of recognition or during Pride Month, or wear it purple, or whenever they like, basically. But it's something that can be added rather than having to get special things. And I just thought that was it was just such a simple solution and really effective, and they looked really nice. Spaces. So here's just a couple of examples of what we've done with our spaces and some pictures from events. The top right is actually a current passive survey that we've got going during Pride Month. So the question at the top here in the middle, all the postcards have on them, what does a safe space look like to you? And so we're having the community help us build a pastel rainbow on the wall, making up what safe spaces mean to them. And we started this in May at a cross-council Ida Hobbit event. Inclusive language, that's extremely important. So thinking about day-to-day language that you use in the workplace and with the community, you could be unintentionally upsetting somebody. And this can be easily avoided by thinking about the kind of language that you use in general. And this has reached beyond the LGBTQIA+ community. So thinking of just the first example, the examples of like family and that there where you've got parents, mum and dad, and that sort of thing, thinking beyond the LGBTQIA+ community, you might be asking where mum and dad is, and that child might be a foster child in the library. They're with their foster carers, or they might be living with grandma and grandpa for whatever reason. Like it's just a good practice to have across the board. Programs wise, trying to speed through so I can fit everything because there was a lot over the last couple of years. So initially, we have leaned into celebratory or awareness times for the community to begin providing more inclusive programming. So we've now got to a point where this is something that we include generally in our programming to ensure that we're inclusive at all times of year rather than just recognition times, although we do still love our recognition times. Some examples of the programs that we have include Rainbow Story Times, which is just, this is across a lot of libraries, but storytime programming that celebrates different kinds of families. We had a Rainbow Forum, which was, I guess, a bit like a living library where people from the queer community came to the library and shared their stories and their journeys. And they were predominantly local people with very different lived experiences, so that was incredible. We have a Dungeons and Dragons exclusive access group, which is for female identifying, female non-binary trans people, and that's a really popular group and that runs monthly. We've had Drag Queen Bingo online and we're going to have one soon that's in person, which is really exciting, and that's with a local drag personality. We have a wonderful partnership with our local legal centre, and we provide legal talks around that. And they provided a legal talk for rainbow families, which was family law that was relevant specifically to rainbow families, which included information about surrogacy and adoption as well. And I included our film showing of Bohemian Rhapsody because that whole thing was massive and turned into just a giant sing-along. So it was incredible. Very much recommend. And Be Proud at Your Library is sort of our touchstone that we keep coming back to, that we use. So we are part of, and I have to take my hat off again to my contact at ACON for introducing me to these people. We're part of the MacArthur Wingecarribee Diversity Network, which is a network that brings together services that provide support for young LGBTQIA+ people in the MacArthur region, in order to build capacity and collaborate in ensuring safe spaces and safe access to support. That's been an incredible group and continues to be an incredible group to be part of. And our Ida Hobbit event that I mentioned earlier, that was with that group. And we also did, I've got the Share Your Wear It Purple story. So that was a promotion we did for Wear It Purple, where we actually created a video from people sending in their video about what Wear It Purple meant to them. And that was an amazing experience. And I definitely recommend seeing if there's a diversity network that is in your area and getting involved with them, because they're wonderful. And we have found that we're able to service more people that are recommended to us through those services as well. So you can see there the cover of the document that I've created out of these last couple of years. I really just wanted to take a moment to recognise a couple of people for their support. First being Paula Pfeffer, who's the Manager of Community Learning and Libraries. Justine Ullabau, who at the time that I started this was the Executive Manager of Community Connections at Council. Heather Davis, Manager Libraries and Learning at City of Sydney, was my wonderful mentor throughout this whole process. Matthew Lim was the graphic designer for the booklet that I created. LGBTQIA plus action group at the library, as well as all the staff at the library that have supported this journey and continue to support this journey on a daily basis. And Michael Atkinson, who was the manager of ACON, because a lot of the stuff that I started off with would not have happened without Michael just really getting on board and supporting and promoting us. And in particular, the New South Wales Public Libraries Association, without which we would not be here today, and Adele Casey in particular for all of her support along this journey as well. I know that's a huge amount of information to put on everyone in a small amount of time. These are just some examples of our Breathe Proud posts that we did throughout June last year. I just thought I'd put those up because I think they're great and I love them. But that's probably all the end of the presentation. If anyone has any questions that they'd like to ask, I might stop sharing so you can see. And so I can see the chat. Yes, Matt Lynn did design the character the characters in the booklet. Yes, he did. Matt was incredible, really coming on board, and it was an extremely collaborative project. And yeah, he came up with the idea for those characters, which I adore.
Does anyone else have any questions of Kat? Paula?
Yeah, I've just got a question. Amazing presentation. Thanks, Kat. Really great summary of all the amazing work you and the team have been doing. I was just wondering, on behalf of the other library services, for people who really just want to kickstart something, what would be the first thing you would encourage them to do?
I think the first thing would probably be looking into becoming a Welcome Here space. It does make you discoverable, but I think any kind of getting on board with ACON, particularly in that way, would be a really good starting thing. The other thing I would look at doing is whether you can get onto any kind of inclusivity training. One of the things, actually a story with that email signature, is I just sort of started adding that. And I was in some training last week where there was about 30 people in the room, and I was the second last person on the round of introductions, and I included my pronouns when I introduced myself. And someone I've never met before from another department in council came over during the break and asked me like what they meant, because they'd noticed them on external partners' email signatures. And so we had a really good discussion about what that meant, and why it was important, and what you putting those into your email signature, what kind of conversation that and expression that shows to external people and internal people. And they're going away and they're going to add that on to their email signatures as well. So sometimes it's as easy as, when you go to meetings, starting to put your pronouns into your introduction services. So it doesn't have to be a giant expression. You can start small, and some places will be able to do giant things, and some places will, maybe take a softer approach. Is that a good thing?
Anyone else have anything?
Yeah, I've got a question. On one of your slides, you had that beautiful language issues. I tried to quickly take a photo of it, because I agree with you. It's not language that's to this particular group. That's language we should be using all the time. So I guess the crunch I'm coming to is, congratulations, you've done a great presentation. But can we get a copy of that PowerPoint so that we can use the material that you've got on there?
Yes, no problems. I'll send it. Adele, I think you've got previous ones up on the New South Wales PLA site, haven't you? Did you want to do it that way?
I can do it that way. Yes, that's not a problem.
I'm just thinking it's quite giant. Otherwise,
right,
it's not going to go through an email because of the images. That particular image was from online. I'm just trying to blow it up because I've got the thing at the bottom. Margaret Middleton, 2014. I'll see if I can track it down while the next person's presenting and put the link in the chat as well. Because I found when I actually showed that particular graphic to people at council, and they really loved that as well. It was the best that I found. Oh, there you go. Someone was screenshotting as we went. You would have to ask Matt about that. That was purchased as part of the project. Sorry, I'm just looking in the chat. Someone's asked if the comic characters from Matt can be used. They are owned by the library, so that'd have to be a conversation with Matt as to whether they're. But he really liked doing them, so maybe he'll do more for you.
Alex Mills.
Kat, great job. I was wondering, do you have any tips on starting those partnerships, and have you documented those partnerships with MOUs in any way?
They've been a lot more casual than that. So we haven't had the need to do that as yet. So the MacArthur Wingecarribee Diversity Network, we meet once a month, and it's a huge range of services. So included is like Lifeline, Matchworks, Junction Works, police officers often come, and the Southwest Sydney Public Health Network. I hope I got that right. So as well as people from like Camden Council, Wallandilly Council, they all come together, and we sort of work on projects as people have availability to. So the Ida Hobbit event, for example, was Headspace, two people from here at Campbelltown Libraries, and the youth officer from Camden Libraries. We put that one together. So it sort of is a very, I don't want to say casual, because the work that we're doing isn't casual. It's quite involved, but it's not like an official MOU sort of situation. But any kind of discussion, and we've also done things like inviting people into the spaces that are helping the LGBTQIA plus community, so services and that sort of thing, bringing them in and allowing them to meet in the libraries without charging them, I guess, to sweeten the pot. So yeah, I think just having conversations, any kind of open days where services are going to be in your local area, I'd say see if you can call up and get a booth there so you can meet people too.
Do we have any other questions? There is a comment in the chat, Kat, that Deanie recently added their pronouns to their email signature and put a link there, so you can click on the link to see an explanation about the pronouns.
That's really cool.
It is cool.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, apparently creating lots of discussion. So that's a great idea for people.
Yeah, everyone borrow that tip.
Yeah, from TransHub.
It's on TransHub. Oh, that's great. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. That's a great idea. And I do know even people within the library have come. I had a 40-minute conversation one morning with two staff members that came and said, we saw this on your email signature and we don't know what it means. Can you explain it? And so we had a really good conversation. But I also had then also purchased Nevo Zisson's most recent book that talks about pronouns. And so I was able to then go out to the library and be like, oh, and here's a book if you'd like to read some more.
I don't think we've got any further questions. Anybody? No.
If anyone has anything after, like, feel free to reach out. That was a lot of information in a little time. I'm actually quite proud because I'm on time, guys. Yay.
Thank you so much. And if you do have any questions for Kat, you can also, if you want to direct them through me, I can pass them on as well. So thank you so much, Kat. That was absolutely fantastic. NSWPLA have got a lot of value for their funds out of you, and we must thank you. Yeah, no, thank you very, very much. We really, really appreciate it.
It's such an incredible experience. It's not something that I probably, like, I still would have gone along with the work, but it was made a lot easier with the grant. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to Kirk. Kirk Ellis has been a member of the Service Design and Customer Experience team at Newcastle Libraries for 5 years. For the past 18 months, they have been developing LGBTQIA+ inclusion initiatives and partnerships with the aim of creating safer spaces for the community. As part of Newcastle's Autumn Alive Festival, they recently coordinated a variety of drag performance nights, demonstrating the flexibility of contemporary library spaces. So Kirk, welcome, and we are looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you. And thank you for the nice introduction. As you said, I am service design and customer experience, but I'm also in the position of being our LGBTQIA+ program lead. And I'm coming to you from Awabakal land today. I'm just going to pop up my screen. There we go. Is that working for everyone? Nope. Is that better?
Yep, perfect.
Yep, wonderful. Okay. So thanks for the opportunity, Kat, to talk about what we've been doing for the 18 months with our, not just us, but with our queer community members as well. There we go. So the framework under which our LGBTQI+ inclusion initiative set was informed by our library strategic plan and our mission, which is on screen there. We have a variety of programming that collects and tells Newcastle stories and engages, informs and educates a wide range of demographics. Whilst we endeavoured to represent as many of the communities in Newcastle as possible, we had one question remaining. Oh, I don't like this presentation screen. Sorry, guys. There we go. Let's not move that. So prior to the inclusion initiatives, Newcastle Libraries had developed 4 key areas that demonstrated our desire to be inclusive. Firstly, we were partnered with the Welcome Here campaign from ACON, as Kat discussed earlier. Following on from that, we provided all of our permanent staff with Pride in Diversity training, which focused on the impact of making workplaces inclusive for queer staff. We already had our collection development policies in place that included statements about not excluding content based on sexual orientation. And finally, we had an ongoing rainbow story time with our local drag queen, Timberlina, pictured here. Timberlina will make many appearances through our presentation today. Of the 4 key areas, none of them really addressed the needs of or represented our community. So what changed for us was COVID, essentially. We do our summer stories program with author talks, and because of COVID, we had some travel restrictions in place and couldn't get some of the authors in. So we had to rethink our programming. So rather than author talk for Honeybee, I pitched the idea of having a panel of local young trans, non-binary, gender fluid and agender people compare their lived experiences to Sylvie's narrative. The panelists and other community organisations were invited to act in an advisory capacity throughout the planning of this event to ensure the nuanced subject matter was approached with the appropriate sensitivity. The conversations that stemmed from this working group indicated that Newcastle Libraries had some space to continue growing its queer inclusion, and that there's still several barriers to participation for the queer community members. So based on those identified barriers, we broke down our approach to 3 key target areas. So starting with our system changes, this is actually on our registration form now that you can sign up online or you can sign up in our branches. So one of the main barriers to library membership that was identified by the Honeybee Working Group was that providing legal ID at the point of registration. We were already having a discussion, and this added to that discussion, about the relevance of legal ID, seen as our library service was now offering full membership through online registration. As part of the membership review, the decision was made to also extend the gender options for the members beyond the standard male, female, or blank. And in the 2 months since this process has gone live, we've had 7 members actively choose a gender option outside of the gender binary. Of all the initiatives undertaken, the increase in gender options raised the most vocal concerns from our staff, and specifically this was coming from a place of staff who didn't want to offend our members. A targeted shift in staff culture was led by our project champions, and when on site, those champions demonstrated the best practice conversation methods and provided safer spaces for our staff to seek clarification after interactions between members. Many of the project champions have opted to wear pronoun badges or some element of rainbow pride that identifies them to the library members as a safe space. So tying very much back into Kat's research with the ally badges. So our second key area of impact was our spaces. And so here is just the demonstration of our flexibility that we've just done recently. On the left there, you've got our library space during the day, followed into what we're looking like a bit hectic in the afternoon, leading into a full nightclub scenario for our LGBTQI+ community. Okay. So this quote came out of the Honeybee conversation. It's not verbatim, it's paraphrased, but it was about a 3-hour conversation that we're having around this. So once we had removed those barriers to membership, we still had to address the barriers to participation. The concerns from the advisory group were that queer people's spaces and programs were not prominently visible to the queer community, and therefore they didn't feel that the organisation would support their needs. Our first consideration was our bathrooms. This was also, Service Design was having a conversation around doing a partnership with Share the Dignity to make sure that we could offer free menstruation hygiene products to people who menstruate. So the intersection between the LGBTQI+ inclusion initiatives and that Share the Dignity project opened up a conversation that acknowledged the potential anxiety bathroom choice can cause to people who are not cisgendered. Of our 7 branches that have public toilet facilities now, 5 of them currently offered multi-gendered facilities. 2 of our branches contain the Share the Dignity dispensers, and those units were installed in bathrooms that can be accessed by people who identify outside of the gender binary. Our second consideration focused on space activation. And the one-size-fits-all approach to space activation was not demonstrating the commitment that we wanted to express to the community. It was clear that in order to make the overall service inclusive, we needed to create queer-specific events that sat alongside space activation initiatives. This approach was reflected in our Autumn Alive Festival, where we hosted equal parts queer-specific events and just general events open to everyone. So what we did find though with the queer specific events, they were a great success. We had 140 to 160 people accessing the library after hours for those events. But probably about a quarter of that was made up from the queer community. So we weren't really hitting that target market that we were trying to get to. So space activation is our big draw card to build up new memberships and to shift the perception of the library space. And with the improved accessibility to the membership, which is encouraging queer people to join the library community, we now have a growing audience, but our question was, how do we keep them from here? This is where we go into our community partners and building up consistent programming and partnerships. So having sustainable programs as well was a big thing for us, and making sure that what we were doing, we could replicate going into the future, not just having one-off events. When we were seeking partners for our programs, it was important for us to look at the diversity of the queer community and how we represent that through our programming. We looked at age demographics as well as gender and sexual orientation demographics, and to embed queer programming as central to the library culture, we developed programs for all of our departments. So strictly speaking, Timberlina and Timber Productions is not operates more as a contractor rather than a partner, but I'm listing them here anyway because I need to acknowledge the fact that they have a long-term relationship with us and they've had a big impact on our programs and how we do things in the library. Okay, so just going through a few of our programs and a few of our partnerships and what we've achieved. So Hunter Rainbow History Group, we established a relationship with them to deliver a digital exhibition because our library does not actually carry a queer specific local history collection at this point in time. The exhibition had 2 goals. It was to highlight the Hunter Rainbow histories and direct web traffic back to their content. And it was also to launch a new digitization initiative, encouraging members of the public to come forward and build Newcastle Library's queer local history collection. So we're trying to start building that collection, and we were doing a call out for that. And due to COVID lockdowns, the initial project had to be repositioned. So instead of launching the digitization initiative, the exhibition was used to acknowledge World AIDS Day and ran for 6 weeks over December and January. The exhibition generated 199 unique views on our website and increased visits to the digital library story wall, where it was also displayed. Feedback from the digital library was positive, with comments speaking directly to the impact of representation, particularly with our queer elders. This image from the exhibition shows the AIDS quilt being displayed at City Hall, which is there. So our next partnership that we were developing was our local university queer collective. So one of our Newcastle Library's largest potential markets for new membership is the university, with new students moved into the Hunter region each year. We established a partnership with the University of Newcastle Students Association's Queer Collective, primarily to host an all-week event for the students, to capture them at orientation week before they, settle into Newcastle. So we purposely did that to situate the library early on as a point of contact for the queer community. From these conversations, the Queer Collective trialled a 4-week rotation of social events in the library space, as their local uni campus couldn't accommodate them. The events selected were based on student interest and had been proven popular at other Newcastle campuses. The program has been running now for 6 months. We just had our debrief this morning with them. That's all going quite well. These events have had a varying degree of success, but the initial review indicates that some of the programs will need to be reconsidered moving forward. One of the more popular events is the book club, which generates interest from the broader library community. It's not just the Queer Collective anymore. And we've got a little picture here. This is the artwork we use to promote our book club, which is super colourful and fun. So Newcastle Pride is a not-for-profit organisation up here that runs our Pride Month, which happens this year, is happening from October to November. So we have a relationship with them. We don't necessarily have a partnership, but we have a relationship that acknowledges that we're both trying to provide support for the community. So that relationship allows us to co-host events and create pop-up experiences at each other's events, which is enhancing the experience for our members. When we had to reposition our Mardi Gras watch party into a family-friendly event, the Newcastle Pride came along and supported us with advertising to their youth-orientated groups and supplied us with a silent disco and assisted us with volunteers on the night. In reciprocation for that, when their Newcastle Pride hosted a flood fundraiser relief, we had a pop-up library experience there and ran a kids' corner for them. And I've got a lovely little picture of our cute pop-up library situation that was happening. And we're moving on to our next partner, ACON. Okay, so we used ACON really to embed ourselves into the local queer culture. And by having a relationship with ACON and Pride, we're really kind of legitimizing the library space as someone that is passionate and dedicated to being involved with the queer community and being part of their culture. So their involvement, at the very least, they've always given us resources, but they do sometimes come along to our events, they have stalls at our events, and they have helped us out with getting panelists and discussion groups together. Okay, so what did we learn? We've done over 30 events in 18 months, and this is kind of the energy that I feel right now after 18 months and a lot of hectic programming. This was taken at Autumn Alive at the very end of the night. So thank you, Timberlina, and that is Molly Poppins. So our first real learning was that from the outset of the Honeybee Working Group, they outlined that whilst the organisations and all the queer communities that are working together, they all have the same objectives or similar objectives, but they didn't have the same approach to achieving the objectives. So this created a disconnect in engaging multiple partners, and we had to take care in how we negotiated those spaces. So the success of some of our programs was really dependent on our ability as library staff to bridge the gap and manage expectations and design the program in a way that addressed the concerns of all the organisations. Second learning was that drag queens come with a built-in audience that may not be our target market. And this is going back to that Autumn Alive conversation. So Timberlina is hosts most of our events, and we have a great partnership with her. And she's really great because she can hit target advertising markets that we can't actually get to. So she does a lot of work with social media stories and putting up things on her feed that we don't do. So we don't have access to TikTok or Snapchat or Instagram Timberlina does, and she gets into a market that is not really looking at what the library is doing and looking to us for events. By her own assessment, though, she understands that her audience base is largely straight, white, middle-aged women, which is not great when we're trying to get a young adult queer vibe going on. As I said before, we were getting those big numbers for our events, but only a quarter of them were in the queer community. So, you know, whilst the event huge success, we did fail to meet our target market. Our third learning was that a successful event in one location does not always translate to a new space. And this goes back to our queer collective. The events that they chose were largely successful in their current location. They had a built-in audience base that were willing to pitch those events and pitch times and schedule the whole thing themselves. Unfortunately, the weekly commitment did not translate. Just moving it 10 kilometers down the road made it a bit hard for people to get to the location. So whilst the book club and the study group were marginally successful and they were getting about 7 to 10 regular attendees a week, the movie night saw an initial interest and slowly dropped off. And they had a sewing club, the Stitch and Snitch. Those events were cancelled midway through the program because they were just not getting anyone showing up to the group. So even though they did design it themselves, did not work for some of it. And we are moving forward, we're keeping the book club and we are keeping the study group, and we're moving into some more educational panel discussions for the month of August with them. And no event can represent the LGBTQI+ community as a whole. So to create balance and inclusion, an inclusion initiative needs to contain a variety of events suitable for different demographics. Working with advisory groups or empowering library members to lead events is probably the best way to get a diverse perspective. Alternatively, aligning your programs to the International Awareness Days will ensure that you develop at least one diverse event per demographic per year. Moving forward, we are continuing to develop programs whilst extending the initiative to include intersectional identities. So the City of Newcastle recently was partner with the Life in Colour Art Prize and Visual Exhibition, and that was with our Wabakoo Nation and NACON as partners. And Newcastle Libraries was represented there with a pop-up experience. Finally, one last picture of our Timberlina, who is looking fabulous and a little bit aggressive. So sorry about the aggression. That's kind of her vibe and we love her for it. She's a local celebrity. That is the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirk. That was absolutely fantastic. You guys are also doing some fabulous stuff.
Thank you.
Is anybody got any questions for Kirk?
Yeah, I do. I was just wondering, Kirk, I love the sound of that building a queer local history collection. Have you started that yet, or is that something that you're going to do?
It's still something that we're considering. Because of the COVID thing, we were doing that as part of our Pride Festival. So we're going to run 3 half-day workshops for people to come in and get their content digitized. And that was going to be pushed out through the launch party for the HIV and the Hunter exhibition. So without having that Pride Festival, which was completely cancelled, we've just sort of put it back by 12 months. We're starting to plan our Pride response for this year. So I know that the digitization specialist here is quite keen to see it happen again. We're also just started discussing things with our museum up here because they've got collections going back 20 years in that field. So having a chat to them to see what we've got and trying to build a synergy between the two organizations.
Is there anyone else that has any questions, comments? Kat shared the link from her presentation in the chat if anyone's looking for that. Libraries Tasmania have recently added MX as an optional honorific, but are still working on male, female and other options.
I guess we got really lucky as well because we did an LMS changeover whilst we're having that conversation, so we just kind of slipped it in there.
I like your style.
Yeah. Our title field on our registrations is open, so there's no drop down for that. You can type in MX if you want. You can type in Grand High Overseer, I suppose. I don't know how big a space you have to type a title in, but I'm tempted to play with it.
Paula has a question.
Well, thanks, Kirk. That was amazing. And thank you for being honest about your experiences with the programs. And I think what we can do as a library industry is advocate for those pronouns for library systems, just to make our broader systems a bit more inclusive. But I wanted to ask specifically about your advisory group, which sounds really interesting. How did you go about finding members for that group?
So it stemmed out of the Honeybee working group, essentially. So when we were looking at having our panelists come on board for that, I was fortunate enough that I've been involved with the trans and non-binary community in this area for about 12 years now. So it was simply a matter of reaching out to a couple of my friends and saying, bring everyone. Let's just get everyone to the table and do what we can do. And we got Acon as well, and Timberlina came to that event. And the first thing that sort of came out of it was that we're not experts in trans representation in the library. So it was quite honestly being upfront with them and just saying, we want you to be not just here to do the panel discussion, but inform us on how we do this correctly and how we do this in the best way to represent you. And there was a really long conversation, said 3 hours, and that was focused on the fact that having a drag queen represent the trans community was not a great approach, which we were very conscious of the fact that when we were advertising that event, we did not put Timberlina's name or image on that event. It was all about, the focus was on the local trans community for that. And because we did live stream the event, and when it got to the discussion panel time, Timberlina sat down below the camera with their back to the camera, and the focus was on the discussion panel themselves. And then from there, we've built up. So we've had a few touch bases with them, but Queer Collective has really come on board as more of the advisory because they have been running the events.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? Oh, Kat.
Hello. When you talked about linking in with the university, is that also something you did through people that you had already known? Or how did you go about making contacts there?
I was aware of the Queer Collective already. We got very fortunate that the convener of the Queer Collective for this year did a placement with the library last year. So I just would not let them leave, really. I grabbed a hold and, you know, with the COVID shutdown, whilst they were still doing their placement, it became more of a intellectual program rather than a physical one, where it was a case of, if you could design a program, what would you do? And that sort of gave us 6 months to sort of sit down and think about it. But most universities, I believe, have a Queer Collective, which is really hitting a dual market there, because I know with libraries, particularly up here, we've had a bit of trouble trying to get that young adult community in, particularly after they turn 18. Keeping that 18 to 25 market is not an easy feat sometimes. So those university students that are looking for socialization and somewhere to go, that's a good way to get into them. And so we're looking at that, and Queer Collective have been, the debrief we had today, very positive. We're hoping that we can jump onto some of the other collectives as well, because they've got a women's collective there, they've got an Indigenous collective, so there is some space there to sort of get them in. And fortunately, the university campus they built across the park from our city library has no meeting rooms, so none of the community groups can meet there. So we're just trying to capture them as quickly as we can.
That's awesome. Thank you.
That's right.
I love that university connection, Kirk. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's been good. We've got two relationships with them, because we've got the one with the Student Association, which is where we're getting the Queer Collective from. but our library also works with the university as well for joint projects, like the university proper, not the student association. So there's a lot of a scope there when you're in a university-based town.
Yeah, it's just brilliant.
Mm.
Does anyone else have any comments, questions? No? Well, Kurt, thank you so much. Newcastle is doing some fabulous stuff up there, and hopefully, well, not hopefully, I know that people will have got a lot out of what you've spoken about to us today. Again, if you've got any questions for Kirk, I'm sure he would welcome you contacting him, or if you would like to do it through me, I'll pass them on to him. But thank you so much, Kirk, and thank you to Alex for letting you present today as well. It's Newcastle's doing some great stuff, and thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
I would now like to introduce Karina. Karina Pearce has worked at Wallara Libraries for 12 years. Her focus in that time has been providing comfortable and vibrant community spaces whilst delivering excellent customer service to the local community. She recently coordinated the first library industry entry, say that with a mouthful of marbles, into the Sydney Gay Lesbian Mardi Gras, and is convener of the newly established Alia Rainbow Group. So Karina, welcome, and we're so looking forward to seeing what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everyone. I'd just like to acknowledge that I'm today on the land of the Gadigal and the Birrabirragal people. And I'm just going to share my screen, if that's all right. So, no. There we are. Everyone see the purple screen? Yep, fabulous. So I was sitting watching Mardi Gras at the SCG in 2021, and and I was watching all of the, you get the gay lawyers, and you get the vets, and you get the flight attendants, and you get all these industry groups walking around the stadium or along Oxford Street, and again I was thinking, well, where are the librarians? So I went home and I said to my partner at the time, I'm going to organise it for next year instead of just asking every year, why isn't someone else doing it? So I went off and decided that the following year we would have an entry in Mardi Gras. So before my enthusiasm waned, because that had happened on other years too, I went home, and in the following week I searched Google for all kinds of book ideas. Basically, I was going with the stereotype, and I came up with these book week ideas from the internet that people have done from various places, and this is what we started working with. So the next thing I did was approach Alia to see if I could get some funding for the project, and they were super keen on the idea. I'd entered a float before a long time ago, so I knew the kind of costs that might be involved. So I worked it all out, went to Alia, they said yes, they could give me that amount of money, and they also offered the the support to their graphic designers who were fabulous. They designed the logo you'll see there. They designed a whole set of options, and they came up with some prototypes for those book costumes as well, which was really helpful. So the next thing I did was I put an ad, just a few lines actually, in one of the Alia newsletters, and I had more than 50 responses straight away, which is great because it shows people read the text in those too, which was quite surprising. So yeah, got 50 responses straight away, which was great. And then I just kind of sat on it for a little while because, the next COVID outbreak happened. And I didn't know, if Mardi Gras was going to be on or what was going to be happening. So I just kind of sat on it for a little bit. But then the applications, or the notices for the applications came out. And so the application had to be put in online. So I don't know if you all know, but the theme last year was United We Shine. And in the application form, which was quite a big form actually, we had to demonstrate how our entry was relevant to the theme and also how we were relevant as an industry to the LGBTQI community. So I jotted down a few ideas and I took it to a wonderful staff member at Woollahra at the time, Erin Pelquist Hunt, who and she's a fabulous writer, and she created some wonderful copy for me. This is what she came up with. Libraries and librarians offer safe community spaces where everyone is welcome and no one is judged. Books shine a light over our experiences. That's the United We Shine link there. Books shine a light over our experiences and help our inner worlds shine bright. And everyone is equal inside a library, a place where we can all take pride in our shelves. So I had some great copy there to use. So the next thing to do was start thinking about how the costumes were going to be created. It was January 2021. No, 2022, January 2022. And we were still very much not living with COVID. And the Mardi Gras party was cancelled. And I was convinced that the parade was going to be cancelled too. But I was wrong, and word came out that the parade was definitely going to be on. So I quickly organised a working party. And you'll see over on the left here, this is the first working party where we nutted through some ideas over a couple of beers in Surrey Hills. And then we went on from there. And different people came to different groups, and we just gradually started to work through how we were going to make those prototype book costumes look fabulous, and be waterproof and be able to be carried for you know, the 12 hours that people had to wear them throughout the day. So then I started scouring the shops. I brought up the Bunnings in eastern suburbs. I went round and I got all of the fairy lights from all of them. The contacts, you'll see the piles of contact there, like no school child in the Sydney's eastern suburbs had shiny contact material on their books this year, because I just went round and bought it all. We had the book covers printed. All of these book covers were designed by the ALIA designers. I sent them off a list and they came back with these beautiful, colourful designs. And on the left here is the spines, which all matched. So once we had all of the raw materials, there were some more working groups then to start putting them all together and making them look fabulous. And making them work as well, and not fall apart. So that was a big thing. Some people remembered all their contact skills from when they were at TAFE, and some were just experts at not getting the bubbles. Others, we had a few bubbles. Everyone improved their contact skills in that time. And that's a lot of the finished products there. It looked fabulous once they were all lined up. There's some more pictures of them there. It would have been great to keep them there, but the kids, of course, just loved them, and I had to move them after a couple of hours. Oh, we put this on somewhere, on Twitter somewhere, and we got a nice review from Craig Silvey. He said, "This is the greatest thing ever." So that was a that was a nice thing from Craig. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to play you a video. So a friend of mine's got a little video business, and she offered to come along for free, and she took pictures and videos throughout the day and created this memory for us. So just sit back for 5 minutes, and I'm just going to share this screen of the video that she created. Give me just a second. Can you all see the video screen? Yeah. Just wave at me if you can't hear what's going on and I'll fix that, but it should be okay. Ready?
Nice that we're doing this, because all over the world, whenever there's any conflict or anything, it's always libraries that are the safe spaces that people can go to that welcome everybody. Happy Mardi Gras!
I love books, especially queer books.
so it was a great night, really exciting. And then like a month or so later, I got the notification that we had been nominated for one of the awards, the Best Float Design. So that was a really exciting night. Myself and my colleague Lauren Caston, who played a big part in helping with the design of the entry, we went and we didn't get first prize in Best Float Design, but we did get a special commendation award, which was really quite surprising and fantastic, and gives us something to aim for next year. Yeah, we're going to aim for first prize next year. And so then I also just want to talk finally about Alia Rainbow. So as a result of the Mardi Gras entry, Jackie from Alia asked me if I'd be willing to be convener of the new Alia Rainbow group that they were setting up. So of course I said yes for that. We've had, I think, 3 meetings so far. We meet on Zoom and it's on the first Tuesday of the month. We haven't yet had any in-person meetings, but they'll be coming soon. There's 89 members of Alia Rainbow so far from all areas of our industry. So not only public libraries, but school libraries, university libraries, special libraries. Yeah, so there's a wide range of people from all different libraries and from all over the country as well. We've got representatives from every state, all the cities, and lots of people from regional areas too, which is fabulous. And what we aim to do is offer support and networking and also swap ideas. And we are trying to have a different presentation each month. So Kat talked about her project one month. Someone else presented on the Dear Queensland Stories project another month, and someone last month gave a presentation on the name change policy working group. So we try and have some different interesting topics each month and have some discussions around all of that. And today there was just a new Twitter account launch. So if anyone's interested, hop onto that Alia Rainbow Twitter. We can get some discussions going there as well. Yeah, and if you're not a member of Alia Rainbow, there's a link there to go and join. Everyone is welcome. That's it from me. Thank you. Sorry about that hiccup in the middle. Has anyone got any questions?
We had a bit of a discussion when you disappeared there, Karina, very quickly. And there's a few here who were at or participated in or were at the Mardi Gras, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it was good fun. Yeah, I can see a few names here. And next year, hopefully it'll be bigger as too. We had a limit of, you could have 40 participants because they wanted to keep it, all going around the SCG. There was a limit on the number of participants this year. I don't know if there will be when it's back on Oxford Street next year. Or if there isn't, we can make it even bigger and better. Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions? No, doesn't seem. I think you've blown everybody away, Karina.
Great, thanks everyone.
And I have to agree, the last comment that's there from Samantha, 3 great presentations, inspiring and important work, and absolutely can't agree more with that. It's been fantastic, a great afternoon. We were scheduled to finish at 4, so we're on time, which is fantastic, a couple of minutes early. But I can't thank each of you enough for giving up your time and presenting today and sharing and imparting your knowledge, your wisdom, your learnings, and just thank you. Thank you so much. As I mentioned earlier, we will make the recording available. I will email everybody how to access that in the next few days. And if we don't have any further questions or comments, we will call the afternoon to a close.
I guess comment-wise, if anyone else has got any tips they want to share for all of us in the comments, that would be great too. Or if you want to turn your screen on and let us know any tips you have.
Actually, can everyone turn their screens on, and I'll take a screenshot of those that I can get. And we'll put it, so much nicer seeing faces. We'll take some screenshots and we'll share them around. Okay. Smile, everybody. Oops. Smile again. Okay, I think I've got everybody. You all keep moving on me. All right, thank you everybody. Thank you. If you've got anything you would like to share or anything, please don't hesitate to email it through. I can send it out. And if you wanted to contact Kat, Karina or Kirk, do so either directly, or I'm happy to pass things along as well. So thank you again. Thank you guys. It's been an absolutely fantastic afternoon.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.